I never thought a simple request could turn my world upside down. But that's exactly what happened the day my fiancée, Emily, asked her sister, Claire, to try on her wedding dress. Emily and I had been together for 3 years. She was everything I thought I wanted, beautiful, confident, and charming. Our wedding was only a month away, and the excitement in the air was almost unbearable. We had spent the morning in her apartment, discussing last-minute details. Flowers, guest lists, music, it all felt overwhelming, but Emily was handling it with her usual perfection. Then, out of nowhere, she turned to her younger sister. Claire, try on the dress, Emily said casually, sipping her wine. Claire, always the quiet one, looked up in surprise. Me? Why? I just want to see how it looks on someone else, Emily said, waving her hand. You and I have similar figures, and I need a fresh perspective. Besides, you might get married one day, and it would be fun to see you in a wedding dress. I didn't think much of it at first. Claire had always been the sweet, innocent girl in the background, Emily's shadow. She was gentle where Emily was fierce, soft where Emily was sharp. I had never looked at her in any way other than as my fiancée's sister. Until that moment. Claire hesitated but finally nodded. Okay, I guess. She took the dress and disappeared into the bedroom. Emily leaned back on the couch, scrolling through her phone. This will be fun, she said, not even looking up. I wasn't prepared for what happened next. When Claire stepped out of the room, my breath caught in my throat. The dress fit her perfectly, hugging every curve, flowing like it was made just for her. Her long, dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, the white fabric making her look like an angel. Unlike Emily, who always carried herself with confidence, Claire looked shy, almost fragile as she stood there, hands nervously gripping the fabric. Wow, Emily said with a laugh. You look adorable. But I wasn't laughing. I couldn't. Claire met my eyes, and something passed between us. A flicker of something dangerous. A spark that should not have been there. She looked away quickly, her cheeks flushing. It feels weird wearing this, she murmured. Emily waved her off. Don't be silly. Twirl around. Claire obeyed, the dress swirling around her legs, making her look like something out of a dream. And God help me, I wanted her in a way I had never wanted anyone before. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to look away. This was wrong. Emily was my fiancée. Claire was her sister. But my heart was already betraying me. Emily was still absorbed in her phone. Mark, what do you think? I swallowed hard. My voice came out strained. She looks beautiful. Claire's eyes darted to mine again. This time, she didn't look away so quickly. There was something in her gaze, a question, a hesitation. Emily sighed. Claire, take it off before you get too comfortable in it. Claire nodded quickly and hurried back into the bedroom, but not before I caught one last look at her. A look that said she felt it too. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay next to Emily, listening to her even breathing, but all I could see was Claire in that dress. The way she had looked at me. The way my body had reacted. I was engaged to one woman, but for the first time, I was thinking about another. I told myself it was just a passing thought, a trick of the mind. But when my phone buzzed an hour past midnight, my heart nearly stopped. It was Claire. Claire, can we talk? I stared at the screen, my pulse racing. Every logical part of me screamed to ignore it. But my fingers moved before my brain could stop them. What? Claire. Kitchen. 5 minutes. I slipped out of bed as quietly as possible. Emily didn't stir. The apartment was dark, except for the faint glow from the kitchen. When I stepped inside, Claire was waiting for me, wrapped in a thin sweater, her arms crossed. For a moment, we just stood there, the silence stretching between us. Then she spoke. I saw the way you looked at me. I exhaled sharply. Claire. Don't lie to me, Mark. Her voice was soft but firm. It wasn't just me, was it? I wanted to deny it. Wanted to tell her she was imagining things. But I couldn't. No, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't just you. Claire took a shaky breath. This is wrong, isn't it? Yeah, I said. It is. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. But the air between us was thick, charged with something we both understood but neither of us wanted to say out loud. Finally, Claire turned away. I should go to bed. I nodded. Yeah. Me too. But as she walked past me, something happened. She hesitated. Just for a second. Then, before I could stop myself, I reached out and touched her wrist. She froze. Slowly, she turned back to me, her eyes searching mine. The tension between us was unbearable, like a thread pulled too tight, ready to snap at any moment. Mark, she whispered. I knew what she was asking. I knew what I should say. Instead, I let my hand slide up her arm, feeling her warmth beneath my fingers. She didn't pull away. We were standing on the edge of something dangerous. Something that could ruin everything. But in that moment, I wasn't thinking about Emily. I was thinking about Claire. And I wasn't sure I wanted to stop. Claire stood frozen under my touch, her breath uneven, her pulse racing beneath my fingertips. I should have let go. I should have stepped back. But neither of us moved. A storm of emotions flickered in her deep brown eyes. Fear, longing, hesitation. Mark, she whispered, barely audible, but her voice sent a shiver down my spine. I swallowed hard. My body was betraying me, pulling me closer to the one person I should never want. But I did. God help me, I did. This is wrong, she said, her voice breaking. I know, I admitted. But I can't stop thinking about you. She let out a shaky breath, her lips parting as if she wanted to say something, but no words came. We were standing too close, trapped in a moment neither of us had planned. A moment we both knew would change everything. She hesitated for a second longer, then turned to leave. But I couldn't let her go. Before I could think, before I could stop myself, I reached out and grabbed her hand. She gasped softly, her eyes snapping back to mine. And then, without warning, she stepped toward me. The world disappeared. Her lips met mine, hesitant at first, as if testing the waters. But when I didn't pull away, when I deepened the kiss, something inside her broke. Her arms wrapped around my neck, and my hands found her waist, pulling her closer until there was no space left between us. I felt her warmth, the softness of her skin, the way she trembled under my touch. I wasn't supposed to be doing this. I was engaged to her sister. But at that moment, Claire wasn't just Emily's sister. She was the woman I couldn't resist. The kiss grew more intense, more desperate. I could feel her body pressing into mine, her fingers gripping my shirt as if she never wanted to let go. A sharp noise broke through the haze, a door creaking open. We jumped apart, both panting, our eyes wide with fear. Claire's face was flushed, lips swollen from our kiss. Footsteps. Emily. Claire's hand flew to her mouth as if she could erase what had just happened. My heart pounded so loudly I thought it might give us away. We stood frozen as Emily's sleepy voice called out, "Mark? What are you doing up?" I cleared my throat, forcing my voice to sound normal. Just couldn't sleep. Thought I'd get some water. Emily appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. She barely glanced at Claire, who stood motionless near the counter. "Come back to bed," Emily murmured, yawning. She turned without waiting for my answer, disappearing down the hall. Claire and I remained still until we heard the bedroom door click shut. Our gazes met again, the weight of what we had just done crushing down on us. "This can't happen again," Claire whispered, stepping back. I nodded. though my heart screamed in protest. "Good night, Mark," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She slipped out of the kitchen, leaving me alone in the dark. The next few days were torture. Claire avoided me. No stolen glances, no accidental touches. She acted as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. I could still taste her lips. I could still feel her body against mine. And I wanted more. I tried to focus on Emily, on our wedding plans. But everything felt wrong. Emily was beautiful. She was strong, confident, and exactly the kind of woman I had always thought I should be with. But she wasn't Claire. And that realization hit me harder than I expected. One evening, as Emily sat on the couch flipping through wedding magazines, I watched her closely. She was smiling, lost in her own excitement. But I felt nothing. The love I once had for her seemed distant, like a memory that had faded too soon. I thought about Claire. About the way she had kissed me back. About the way she had trembled in my arms. I had never felt that kind of electricity with Emily. That night, as I lay beside my fiancée, I made a decision. I couldn't marry Emily. Not when my heart belonged to someone else. The next day, I found Claire in the garden behind Emily's house. She was sitting on the bench, staring at the flowers, lost in thought. I hesitated before walking over, my heart pounding. She heard my footsteps and turned, her expression unreadable. "Mark," she said quietly. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. She sighed. "There's nothing to say. We both know what happened was a mistake." I shook my head. "No, it wasn't a mistake." Her eyes widened. "Mark, I love you, Claire." The words tumbled out before I could stop them. And once they did, I knew they were true. She inhaled sharply, her hands gripping the bench as if steadying herself. "You don't mean that." "I do," I said firmly. "I've been trying to fight it, but I can't. And I won't." Her lips trembled. "Emily, I can't marry her," I cut in. "Not when my heart is somewhere else." Tears welled in her eyes. "Mark, this will destroy her." I reached for her hands, gripping them tightly. "I know, and I hate that. But what about us? Are we just going to pretend this doesn't exist?" She looked at me for a long time, her eyes searching mine. And then, slowly she whispered, "I don't know." It wasn't a yes. But it wasn't a no either. It was enough. That night, I sat across from Emily at dinner, my stomach twisted in knots. She was laughing, talking about wedding details. But I wasn't listening. I was thinking about Claire. And the moment when I would have to tell Emily the truth. I didn't know how she would react. I didn't know if Claire would even choose me in the end. But I did know one thing. I couldn't keep pretending. Because love, real love, was never meant to be a secret. And mine belonged to Claire.